It's about understanding what's not working for you and knowing that you can fix it, that you do have the power to fix it, but actually taking those steps.
Hello, leaders, beautiful people, and light keepers. It's Michelle Phillips with this week's episode of Write Your Outcome. Today's topic is one that's very important in our lives, but one I haven't touched on yet in the Write Your Outcome series. So I'm very delighted to have Mina Yang in the studio on the podcast today. Welcome, Mina.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. Mina is in Los Angeles. I'm in New York, so we are coast to coast. And as always, I'm going to read a little bit about her background, and then we're going to dive in. Mina Yang is a former academic who taught at top universities and conservatories, a published author, a mom, and yes, she once even consulted a Disney princess. We'll talk about that. She's also a trained pianist who believes deeply in both rigorous analysis and the magic of human connection. On paper, her life looked perfect, but behind the scenes, her marriage was deeply dysfunctional. When she finally left, she did what high achievers do best. She studied the problem. She sought expert relationship coaching, trained as a hypnotherapist, and immersed herself in the research. And what she discovered was surprising. High achieving women aren't falling in love because they're too successful or intimidating. They're failing because they're shrinking themselves, doing the emotional labor, shape-shifting, and playing small for partners who aren't fully showing up. Whew! She built a practice to change that. Today, she helps women heal subconscious patterns through hypnotherapy and apply practical dating strategies most therapists never teach. Her clients often experience transformation in just 1 or 2 sessions. Her mission now is bold and unapologetic, helping women show up fully, ambitious, intelligent, success and all, and choosing partners who are worthy of them. Oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled to dive into this conversation. Hello again, Mina.
Hello.
So I love what you're saying because you do hear that a lot. Oh, my success is intimidating. So let's break it down. Let's use your own experience as an example. So you're a successful woman. You have a successful career. When did you finally realize, if I bring it into the theme of this show, when it was time to write a new outcome for yourself?
I would say after decades of struggling in love and after a decade plus marriage where I felt lonelier than ever. Once I left the marriage, I realized I really needed to do things differently. And that's when I did all of the work, all of the studying, and I really saw for myself that the truth is I need to show up as myself, show up fully, and be willing to intimidate men, because that's how I find the men who are actually ready to be real partners to me, not someone who's going to be insecure or need to be, coddled in order to feel okay being with someone like me.
Yeah. So even that, just admitting that is important. I have a woman friend who says, I'm looking for the male version of me and I don't think he exists, but we'll talk about shifting that pattern. I remember when I was going through my divorce, I did this same exact thing. I went to the books. I read all these books. I was like, the book was going to save me. But again, it definitely helped. So talk about making that mental shift in your mind that you're playing small. How does that show up in women's lives? These successful, I want to read what it says on your website. You're crushing it in your career. So why does love feel so hard? Can you break that down? What's happening with our beautiful, fabulous, intelligent women out there?
Yeah. So a lot of what we learn as children actually are very contradictory, right? On the one hand, we're told to achieve, to perform, to earn attention and maybe even love. But on the other hand, we're also told we can't be too much, that we can't, make other people feel uncomfortable. And so we're in this kind of a double bind. And so we end up just really not knowing how to do things. And we also end up efforting a lot of what what happens in relationships. That because in work and in school, the more effort we put into something, the more successful we are. We think that would work in relationships as well. And we're not so good at just allowing love to happen, at receiving love, at not trying to control the outcomes of everything.
Yeah. Well, you hit on something really important. I mean, you hit on so many things, but just that early conditioning. And one of the books that was big when I was getting divorced was He's Just Not That Into You. And I remember in the book, there was a questionnaire. It said, you've dated him twice and he hasn't called you. Write down 3 reasons why you should call him. And I'm writing my reasons. And then he says, you just spent all this time writing about a man who hasn't lifted a finger. You're kidding yourself. But what I want to share on the podcast with people listening, Mina, is that when I watched the movie, the book is way better than the movie, first of all. But what you hit on just now, which I love, which is to our detriment, the opening scene of that movie shows these 2 little children on the playground, a boy and a girl, and they're on the, that thing that goes around, I think. And the boy hits the girl, and she runs back to her mother. He hit me, Mom. And she goes, honey, that's because he likes you. And it's and there's our problem, right? From an early age, we're taught these ridiculous things that, men beat up on us. They're mean to us when they were little because they like us. So what are some other messages we get when we're young that are false?
Well, I think there's a lot of bad messaging out there. So, you mentioned Disney in my introduction. We watch so many movies where, women have to give up something. I think of Little Mermaid, where she had to give up her whole identity of being a mermaid to try to marry this guy she barely knew. And so we think it's okay for us to keep sacrificing ourselves and, really not even know who we are, to shapeshift, to shrink. And that shouldn't be the premise on which love is built, right? It should be 2 people who know themselves well, who recognize in each other something compatible and something, great in the sum of the parts. But instead, we convince ourselves that if the guy is worthy and worthy is, using a lot of the wrong criteria, that we should be able to just do whatever we need to in order to make it work.
So break down, you use the word shape-shifting twice. I have my own image of what that means, but let's break it down for the listeners. What do you mean when you say shape-shift?
Yeah. So again, The Little Mermaid is the perfect example because in the original story, she actually feels pain of such enormity every time she takes a step with her new human feet. And that's such a great metaphor for what we often do, that we become someone else in order to try to become something that we think would be acceptable. Even though we're already awesome, we feel like we have to become someone else to often satisfy these men who, are insecure and who can't handle the fullness of you. So instead, choose a different guy so you can show up as yourself, that you don't have to change yourself.
Choose a different guy. I was watching some of your Instagram. So everyone what's your Instagram? Share it right now so people can follow you.
It's sorry, I don't know.
Sorry, you forgot. I'll find it.
Let's edit that out.
But you said something on the Instagram which really resonated with me, and now I can't remember what it was. But I remember being single and being upset. Oh, all the good men are taken, and all that. There's nobody good out there. Men are all rats and blah blah blah. And I remember being with a good friend, Linda Fitzpatrick, if you're listening. I was sitting with you at a outdoor festival in Hoboken, New Jersey, and complaining about men. They're all rotten and there's no good ones. And you looked at me and you said, Michelle, there's good men out there, and men want the same thing. They just want love and they want respect and they want to be seen. And when she said that to me, I thought, I'm not looking at it that way.
Yeah.
So how do you help people start to see that the way they're looking at it is keeping them stuck?
I talk about this all the time because we have such a tendency to globalize an entire gender and think that the problem is always with them. But oftentimes it's the filters that we bring to our encounters, right? So if we are in the habit of going out with men who are not emotionally available, that is what has become familiar to us. And that might also stem from childhood experiences. Maybe we had a parent who was not emotionally available. And so that's who we notice. And if somebody is actually available and interested, we read that as, oh, this guy's boring, he's predictable. Like, we dismiss them too quickly. And so it's really about changing the way we approach the world and how we see different people and understand what our own needs are.
Yeah, you're saying something that even we've just become a society that believes like, and to get what you want, you have to work hard. And we put it into relationships too, right? If he's too easy, he's too nice, then there must be something wrong. But I like what you're saying. What I'm hearing you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is like kind of don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like have a couple dates, get to know him. Don't just write him off too soon.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like we all have this tendency, and some of this is again from conditioning because we watch these rom-coms where, their eyes meet across the room and they feel, butterflies in their stomachs, and then they have to overcome all these hurdles in order to finally come together. That's just not a great model for most people. For most good relationships, it takes time to actually get to know someone. You want to, in fact, observe early on that their values, in fact, align with yours, that they're kind, that they're consistent, that they're the kinds of people who can be good partners, good teammates. And oftentimes we decide too quickly based on chemistry, whether someone is it or not. And that can, our chemistry is oftentimes wrong. Our chemistry is oftentimes based on earlier experiences of danger and safety and things that we're not even aware.
Oh, you're ringing so many bells. I also have a friend years ago who said to me, she always chased the high because it's really, the dopamine when you're falling in love, it's like the best feeling in the world. But she goes, now here I am in my 60s, I'm alone because after the high wore off, I went to the next guy and the next high and the next high. So when you talk about habits and patterns, would you suggest that people kind of go through their last 5 relationships and kind of see how did they end or what was, the deciding factor and see where the patterns are? Is that what you're doing?
Absolutely. So I have a whole chapter about this in my book because your personal history tells you a lot about your patterns. And you might not be so aware of them because when you're in it, you're too close to it. It's like asking fish to describe water. And so sometimes you need to take a step back and just be very sort of objective about it and lay out, how did your last 5, 10 relationships go? And if you're noticing that the same thing happens in each one, well, guess what? What's the common denominator?
Yes.
It's you. Yeah.
Oh
So
my
let's
gosh. And let me
them in and take some accountability here.
Accountability. And I want to give a plug for your book. The book is Boss Lady, Boss Love, right? Be the boss in your life in all aspects. Now, funny or not funny, I'm in my second marriage. And when I start saying the same, oh, you don't love me, you're not paying attention to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I said that in the first marriage. It's not him, it's me, right? This is my loop that I need to heal. Yeah. So that was, a rude awakening for me. I'm like, this is a totally different man and I'm laying the same guilt trip on him. So let's talk about taking responsibility. How do you help women do that?
Well, one big thing is what you've already said, gaining self-awareness. So really recognizing, oh, I'm doing this again and it's a different guy. So that must be, I have some unmet need or I have some wound that haven't, really been healed yet. So let's take a deeper look at that. And so that could be through traditional therapy. I find that hypnotherapy works really well with my clients. It's about understanding what's not working for you and knowing that you can fix it, that you do have the power to fix it, but actually taking those steps. So, sitting around with your girlfriends complaining about the state of malehood is really not helpful. There've been so much talk in popular media about, heterofatalism and men just not showing up and men not doing this and that. And that's just not helpful. There are a lot of men who are out there who are very quality and who want a good relationship just like you do. But a lot of this has to do with you overcoming those biases and thinking about how you can show up differently.
Yeah, the biases go both ways, right? Sometimes we're given the wrong things as little girls, grow up to be the princess or the Little Mermaid. Let's talk. I'm very interested about the hypnotherapy. How does that work? What does it entail? Let's share that.
Yeah, so the hypnotherapy, what we do is to get beyond your conscious mind because we have a lot of chatter. We overthink things, especially overachieving women, right? And sometimes that conscious thinking gets us away from what's actually going on below the hood, under the hood. And so with hypnotherapy, we're able to go back to some of the origins of these beliefs and patterns that you still repeat. And we're able to see this is why you took on these beliefs, that maybe you're not lovable, or you have to earn love, or you have to work really hard for love. And we're able to see, hey, when you were a kid, that happened because your parents, maybe they were trying their best, but they were also like, humans with flaws. And so they maybe didn't do things exactly right. And as a kid, you're so vulnerable. You took on these beliefs to protect yourself. But now those beliefs are no longer helpful. And so let's rewire those beliefs and take on new ones that are much more empowering and that will change your behavior. And oftentimes, after just 1 or 2 sessions, women really just kind of see things differently. It's like a shift that takes place because so much of what we do stems from our subconscious without our own awareness.
And you're giving a lens, like an outside mirror to what's going on and what they're doing. And that's what, when, like you said, when you're in the water, you can't describe the water. So having someone help you see your own patterns and how they're getting in the way. So is all the hypnotherapy, is it in person? Can you do it on, Zoom like this? Or
it's just like this. I do all my sessions virtually. Yeah.
And you keep your eyes closed? I'm very interested. Do I just close my eyes and you talk to me?
Generally, the client has her eyes closed and I direct them to remember certain things from the past. And it's always a matter of reviewing rather than reliving. And they start to understand from an adult's perspective what happened in the past, why they did take on the beliefs they did. It made so much sense when they were kids. And they also come to a recognition that they don't need to think those things anymore.
And then are you creating new beliefs while they're hypnotized, or is that when they come out of it?
We start to implant those new beliefs, like you are lovable, you do have power, you have voice, agency, all of those things. But then I also produce an audio that they listen to for 21 days because that's the length of time to really, the repetition helps create new neural pathways and really kind of just changes. It supplants the old beliefs with the new ones.
Hello, it's Michelle Phillips interrupting this podcast to talk about my brand new book, Energize Your Happiness. Tap into your personal energy and shape your destiny. I have spent 25 years researching, testing, and working with high performers. And most people think that happiness is something you earn after you succeed. I am here to tell you that we have it backwards. Happiness is a habit, and it is the fuel for everything that comes next. When I learn something and it helps me in my life, I want to share it with you. I want you to have more fulfillment. I want you to have more energy. And in Energize Your Happiness, I teach you how to manage your energy, not just your time, so you can lead yourself with clarity. You can regulate your emotions and stop running on empty. This isn't about positive thinking. It's not about pretending that life is easy. It is a practical, science-based approach that blends neuroscience, habits, and intentional mindset shifts that help you move out of stress into flow and right outcomes you actually want to live. When you learn how to apply the things that I talk about in this book, you don't just feel better, you make better decisions, you show up stronger, and you create results that last. So I am so excited about this book. I want to shout it from the rooftops. So right now, if you have not read it, I want you to go to energizeyourhappiness.com and I will send you a personally signed copy. You could go to lulu.com. You could go to amazon.com. And if it's already helped you have a better outlook, feel better, sleep easier, please, I would so appreciate a review if you are called to do this. We are all in this together and I want you to be happy. I want you to feel fulfilled. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this message with you. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get back to the podcast. You said something I can't remember, being lonely isn't okay. You said on one of your reels. A lot of people go, oh, I'm just okay. I'm just having fun. Like a lot of women will do that because they don't want to admit they want a partner. Oh, we're just having fun. We're just having fun. And that makes me crazy because it's like, no, I really want more, but I'm afraid to say I want more. So how do you break that pattern, or how do you start to admit to yourself, or your friends, that you really do want more? Or do women not? Is that a real statement? I think that's just a mask.
Yeah, again, I think part of being a high achieving woman is thinking that you have to be hyper independent, that you have to do everything alone. And it's possible. Yes, you can live a life alone, but science has proven over and over again that we are healthier, happier, just better in all different measures when we are connected with others. And when we have somebody who has our back. Right? Yeah. It just makes such a difference at the end of your day. If something great happened to you, something terrible happened to you, if you have someone to come home to and talk about it with, it makes a world of a difference.
That was the biggest thing. That was the biggest thing when I went through my divorce, was at the end of the day. I mean, my parents love me. I have friends, but I was like, there's not that one person that wants to know, where are you like, if I'm traveling, if I got where I'm going, and my husband, who is a joy, and when I was single, again, I was always looking. So then I'd be at a red light. Is it you? Is it you? Like I couldn't even focus, and now he grounds me. He's a foundation for me. And I just know that, but not everybody's like that. But I love when I hear men. I have a lot of good men in my life too that say, I do better in partnership.
Yes.
I'm not the one night stand guy. I want to be with the person, if for exactly the reason you said. I want to share my life with someone, and not be alone. So what advice would you give any single women right now listening to us that want to start, being the boss of their relationships, their life, and getting what they want?
Well, they should first be really honest with themselves. What's happened to them in the past? Why didn't relationships work out in the past? And then they should think about how to address those issues. Is this something they can fix on their own, or do they need to get some professional help? Because that's definitely out there. They should get my book, because
I was going to say that. Yes,
there's a step-by-step, process of how to get from point A to point B. It might also be helpful for them to join a community, because there are lots of other women who are working through these issues. I'm actually creating a community right now, and by the time this airs, it'll probably be available. So it's a subscription-based community, and it's just a place to be honest about some of their challenges getting into relationships, and be able to find support from other women, and also see what other women struggle with, because oftentimes they're the same struggles. And when you see one person work through something, it helps you to get better at it too.
Yeah. Buy her book, Boss Lady, Boss Love. And you said something about, I love what you said. A lot of high achieving women believe they should just be, I got it, right? I don't need anyone. I got it. But realize that, doesn't have to be that way. So finding the help you need, taking the steps you need. One of the things I changed, because I say, oh, there's no good men out there. And then I was like, Michelle, you only need one.
Yes.
Right? Like people say, there's no houses out there to buy. I'm like, you only need one house. You only need one man or woman.
Exactly. Yeah, I get that all the time. Women telling me, well, I'm really liberal and I live in a conservative town, so most men won't work for me. And it's like, okay, you don't need to date 20 men. You only need one. And I'm sure there's one person who is politically aligned with you. So
exactly. Now here's the $20 million question. When I read that book back in the day, and I read a bunch of books, I think this is from whatever, I don't remember which book it's from, but I think it talked about how men love the chase. Cause I read a book about fish too. What was it called? I can't remember. But I remember the book saying like men need to be in control. They run the world. You shouldn't call them. They should call you. And I remember back in the day thinking, I'm a strong, independent woman. I know what I want. Why should I wait? Why shouldn't I call him? I thought it was so, 18th century. What do you think about women reaching out to men, calling men, asking for dates? What's the new information on that?
I think it is important to be very clear about what it is you're looking for. And I think it's good, pretty early on in dating, maybe date 2, 3, to say what I want is a serious partnership with someone. And these are the qualities I'm looking for. And then The problem becomes when you've decided before you even know the person that he is it, and you start chasing and you start trying to control and make it into a relationship that it's not yet. I think you have to give it space to grow on its own, and you have to give it space so that the man can come to you and also like feel like he's taking the reins too. It's a give and take. And the problem is when a woman tries to take the reins from the start and not let go, and she's just sure this is it, and she needs to do everything to make it work. I think men feel uncomfortable with that. Everyone feels uncomfortable with that. When someone is trying to determine your fate, you know?
You really defined that well.
Yeah. So it's about being really honest and being upfront, but also letting things grow and evolve over time.
Yeah, don't go so fast. Let it take its natural course, because nobody wants to be pushed or demanded of.
Yes.
Exactly. So that's very good advice in dating. I had a great question that just went out of my head. What was I going to say? This is such a good subject, because I've made all the dating mistakes too. Okay, the social media world of dating. So now there's this, social media, like you can have a date every single night of the week if you want. It's crazy. Or I was on it for only 6 months, and this was like many years ago, and it was you could write a whole book on the only 6 months I did it. But what advice do you give people for, because it isn't also a viable, I know plenty of people who met via dating sites or internet. Mm-hmm. So what advice do you give people with the new dating these days and how it's done?
So you have to really protect your energy, have very clear boundaries. Mm-hmm. The wonderful thing about dating apps, social media, all of these tools is that they actually amplify people who are not emotionally available, who are not being consistent, all of those things. So you need to pay attention to that. Know exactly what it is you're up for and that you will not put up with, right? And so then you have to be really like clear. If someone might look amazing, like he might be really hot and he might have like a great job, all of those things, but he's not consistent. Cut. You just have to be ruthless about it, because your energy and time are important. They're valuable to you. And so you have to approach it with like, okay, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So you shouldn't go on those sites until you're very clear about what it is you want in a partnership. And then once you're there, you're using it as a tool and you're being ruthless. If someone does not fit, you just cut them out, you move on. And trust that there is someone who meets your criteria out there, but you'll only meet them if you are ruthless in cutting out the ones who don't.
Oh, you say such, oh my God, I'm bringing my dating life is all flashing before my eyes. When I got divorced, I'm such a businesswoman. I've been in business for 30 years, 25 years. And when I was dating, if I didn't like someone, I would call them up and say, oh, thank you very much, but I'm not interested in you. But as soon as I returned their call, they never took no for an answer. That's where ghosting was invented, because they wouldn't take no. So I just had to stop answering. Yeah. And I hated that, because as a businesswoman, I would never leave a call unanswered or an email responded to. But you do have to be a little ruthless and protect your own energy. And it's not being, it's so interesting. It's like, I don't want to make you feel bad, but I'll make me feel bad. Mm-hmm. So it's really protecting your energy and what what you need in this. And I love what you said about having clear boundaries and a clear kind of list of your needs and wants and what's deal breakers maybe for you.
Yes. So important.
Yeah. Is there a difference in the generations when it comes to dating? Young people, middle-aged people, then you have, seniors or people with kids, without kids. Do you see any patterns?
Yeah, I do think that it's different. As a midlife woman who is dating, you're no longer interested in someone with potential, right? Mm-hmm. You want someone who is going to be aligned. And so you already know who you are. Like you're basically fully baked. You're not in your 20s thinking I could be this or that, depending. And so you need to be really clear on what your requirements are. If it matters to you that somebody has your religious beliefs, you're going to look for that. You're not going to make excuses for the guy. Yeah, he's really sweet. He brought me flowers. So yeah, he's an atheist, but that's okay. You shouldn't play those kinds of games anymore. And you're going to only be with someone if that connection adds to your life, because you've already built a life. You already have a life you love. So why add someone into that mix who's going to take away from what you already have, right?
Is there like a set amount of dates you would require someone goes on? This is a weird question, but is there a formula, I guess I'm asking?
Well, I do think it does require a few dates. So I encourage my clients not to give up after one, date, because a lot of people are not comfortable at dates. And in fact, some of the nicest guys are the worst daters, right?
You're
Because
so
it's the
right.
ones who are emotionally unavailable, who goes on dates all the time because they're never actually, with someone permanently. And so I encourage them to give the guy a pass on that date. As long as there's nothing that triggers red flags, I think you should go on 2 or 3 dates. And then from there, you can start to see, you should have your mental checklist. Is he kind? Is he consistent? Is he emotionally mature? Is he, these different things? And if he is, you should just keep going for a few dates. And if after, say, a couple of months, you don't feel anything at all, then, give it a pass. But I do feel like we dismiss nice guys much too fast.
Yes, I love what you're saying. It's give them another chance. I always say dating is practice, right? You have to practice. They're uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable. So I love the second, third chance. The other thing I see with people sometimes is this texting relationship or an email relationship. I had someone come to me and say, oh my gosh, I met this guy, Michelle. He's so amazing. He said this and I said this and he said this and I said this. And, he's flying into town next week and I'm going to go shopping. And the one, she said something, I'm like, wait, have you actually spoken to this man? Oh no, it's all text or it's all email. And to me, that is such a red flag. I don't know. Yes. But again, what would you say to that? How do you help that or stop that?
I think it's important to say pretty early on in the interactions that you want to be with someone who you can meet in real life sooner rather than later. And so I would insist, after a few back and forth texts, maybe after a couple of days, I would say, I would like to have a video call with you. Because, it's too easy now to have a scammer go to ChatGPT and come up with the best lines to say to you to hook you emotionally. And, if they're unwilling to get on a video call with you, that's pretty
huge red flag.
Totally, right? Because a real person actually wants to get to know you too. They are in it to actually have a real human bond. And so if they're not willing to do that, that's a really bad sign. And honestly, what's the point of texting back and forth infinitely? So again, early on, say, this is what I'm here for. If you're not into that, if you want to just, if you want a pen pal, I'm out. That's it.
Really good. And again, that's another clear boundary.
Yes.
And I just know how, I was so lonely, so sad after my divorce that someone said to me, my friend's husband said, men smell your loneliness. And I went, oh my God, I don't want men to smell my loneliness. So you are in this vulnerable position, even though you're killing it at work and you're doing well, but then this love, this heart is like, you're protecting it. So what advice would you give women who are just feeling vulnerable and lonely, but they still have to put their foot in the water or you don't, get anywhere?
They should join my community, because I do think when you're doing this with other women, it makes you feel less alone. It makes you feel less desperate. And you also hear about the wins. Like you hear other women having really wonderful relationships. Like, every time somebody posts a wonderful love story about them and their husband or their partner, I always comment back because I want those stories to be more out there. I feel like, there are just too many bad stories that we can point to. And so a lot of women have taken on this belief that there are no good relationships, that all love hurts.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to be the story. So yes, I think finding other people who are going through similar things is
okay. That's another thing I'm telling people. If you're listening and you're single, you have to join a community. I love what you're saying, because when you see the success stories and the missteps, all these things, I'm sorry, I keep sharing my own experience because it's like triggering my brain so much. One of the first things when I moved into my new apartment, there was like this singles night at this winery in my town, and I got all dressed up and I walked down. I didn't have the guts to walk in. I was walking by and I looked in, it was mostly women. I went and I was so vulnerable. But when you're in a community, and if I went there with a friend, if two of us would have walked in together, I would have had that wing woman, that support I needed to have the courage to, I felt like, oh, here's poor, lonely, vulnerable Michelle. But really taking those steps, so community, you're making so many fabulous points. I could go on forever because this is such a good topic. So, okay, buy the book, Boss Lady, Boss Love. Where can they find the book and where can they follow you and find you?
It's on Amazon. And I'm very active on LinkedIn. I post almost every day. So you can connect with me there. Just look up Mina Yang, hypnotherapy or hypnotherapist or relationship coach, and you should find me pretty quickly. And I will be starting this community in January. So by the time this airs, it will be in full swing. So join us there too.
This is so needed. I love that, I love intelligent, brilliant, creative, fabulous women getting together to support each other, to help each other. What you're doing is beautiful. This has energized me so much, and it gives us all hope. Any final last words of wisdom for the folks?
I would say believe in love. Love really is worth everything. I actually just had a major surgery a week ago.
You look amazing. I don't know what you had done.
And my partner was just there for every step of the way. And I just think back to previous relationships where I was going through hard things and I just couldn't count on that. And what a difference it makes to know there's somebody who's just going to pick up the slack and just make your life easier. It's a beautiful thing.
Every person should have that feeling you just described, right?
Yes.
That someone out in the universe has your back and is there for you. So thank you so much, Mina. This was absolutely beautiful. Thank you for being on Write Your Outcome. Thank you to all you fabulous, beautiful people listening and watching. Buy the book, follow her, connect. Rate this podcast if you're loving it and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Make it a great day and write your outcome. That's a wrap for today's episode of Write Your Outcome with me, Michelle Phillips. If something sparked in you and you enjoyed this podcast, please don't forget to rate, review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Let's keep these ripples going and make it a great